G'day, Binanceans, and welcome to this week's Binance Beach. Joining me this week, we have Patrick from Outpost and Crypto Tax Calculator, and we're going to be chatting AI, hype, and coins. Welcome, Paddy. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much for having me back on. Excited.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, mate. It's February 14th, so I don't know if you've got anything special planned, but this will do me just fine, I reckon. Chatting with you about crypto.
This is my date for the day.
Maybe we can go out for dinner later and keep the conversation going. Cool. All right. So let's start our show, as we always do, with our Bitcoin price. This week, we are really flat on the week. We've barely moved, sitting around 98,200 US dollars. Does seem like we're in another bit of a holding pattern, waiting for more news. The market's been pretty jumpy. Obviously, the Trump regime so far has been, I think you could say, erratic. There's been everything from tariffs to executive orders on paper and plastic straws. So it definitely feels like things are waiting for another major catalyst to move up or down. It is a fair bit of jumping around this week for Bitcoin, but yeah, we've basically finished the week where we started. So yeah, that's something, I guess. When we look at CoinMarketCap and have a look at our top tokens, our fear and greed index at the moment is actually quite low. We're well down in the kind of fear range at 40. Bitcoin dominance is still sitting around 60%. And as we look down these top tokens, like ETH was down a touch on the week. XRP managed to somehow go up. But there's a lot of kind of flat performance this week. Solana only up 2%. BNB had a great week, which is good, cheering on that Binance coin. But yeah, I'll throw it over to you, Paddy. What are your thoughts at the moment on the market, where we're at, and what you're watching for from a performance perspective?
Yeah, great question. I think at the moment, all eyes are sort of on Bitcoin. I'm personally looking at the ETF flows quite closely. We've had pretty strong flows up until this week. We've had a sort of small outflow, like net outflow this week across the ETFs, but nothing major. But up until this week, it's been pretty positive. Ethereum inflows have been pretty patchy though, as to be sort of expected, I guess. But yeah, I think it's pretty sort of telling after, seeing a lot of volatility off the back of the tariffs, off the back of Deepseek and sort of nuking the markets the past couple of weeks, to get a week where Bitcoin's essentially range bound within a few $100s. So I think, I don't know, I guess we could go up, we could go down, but it sort of feels like the market's just ready to make a big move in one direction or another. And I think a lot of people are sort of expecting Bitcoin to sort of lead the way there. I'm not exactly sure what the good or bad news catalyst might be for that to happen, whether it's, some other executive order, a Bitcoin strategic reserve or something along those lines, either approved or denied even. But that's sort of what I'm watching. And I think once Bitcoin gets moving in either direction, alts will probably follow.
Yeah, I agree. And it definitely seems like we've had a lot of like minorly bullish news. Like we had, a bunch of really positive rhetoric from David Sachs and from the US regime, but none of it seemed to really move the market in a massive way. Maybe because we were almost a little bit too bullish. And in crypto, we think about hours and weeks and we look at charts on a 1 minute candle and we're kind of like, why aren't we moving? Where is this coming? Like, where is our next catalyst? But when you zoom out, so much of this momentum is still really positive. And so I think we'll see how this plays out in the short term. But I agree. I think the next major move will be Bitcoin led. Do you have any thoughts on the Ethereum ETF flows just before we kick into AI for the week? I know that there's been a lot of disappointment about ETH's price performance this year. Do you have any thoughts on ETH as an asset alongside, what we've seen such strong performance from Bitcoin? We've really seen a lot of lagging from ETH. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think ETH's just definitely struggling with that narrative problem. from like an institutional standpoint with ETFs, obviously there's a lot of marketing that goes into it. And with Bitcoin, the narrative is very clear. Digital gold isn't very hard to grasp. Whereas with Ethereum, it seems like there is some sort of PR marketing issue, and how do you actually sell this to investors? It's sort of unclear. And with Ethereum, obviously, you could potentially sort of value it off like fees and revenue sort of thing. Or you could also look at like TVL and like the value of the network and the activity on top of it, including L2s. So it's sort of unclear how you should actually value ETH as an asset. Is it money? Is it something else? So I sort of feel like that's essentially dragging the Ethereum price and the whole narrative down. And that's why I think we're seeing really spotty inflows and outflows from the ETFs. I do sort of expect that to even out over time as investors sort of figure out what Ethereum is, and once the institutions actually figure out how to market it to people, because at the end of the day, these are products that they're trying to make money off. So they don't want one of their products to fail. They will work it out.
Yep, that's 100% true. And I think we've definitely seen a lot of significant institutional buying of ETH as well. World Liberty Financial did a massive ETH buy the day after the tariffs were announced and almost doubled their ETH bag. And yeah, the Trumps seem to be pretty bullish on ETH. So let's see how it goes. We'll be watching that one pretty closely. But hey, let's kick into our topic for the week, which is the intersection between crypto and AI. Give us a bit of an overview of why crypto and AI are sectors that have come together. And yeah, what do you think is the reason that these two emerging technologies have ended up having quite a lot of overlap?
Yeah, great question. I think just first of all, over the past 10 years, it's obvious that blockchain and cryptocurrency has, essentially changed the world in many regards. And the fact that we can now transact through, peer-to-peer, borderless, decentralized currencies is incredible. And it's a massive unlock for people in underserved parts of the world as well. We're really lucky in Australia. Obviously, we have great financial infrastructure, but that's not the case everywhere. And then we've got, just on that point, crypto is this sort of like inherently decentralizing technology. Everyone can get involved. There's, no KYC. Like if you've got an internet connection and a device, essentially you can use crypto. On the other hand, we've got AI, which is similarly revolutionary technology. I'm sure a lot of the listeners would have had a crack with ChatGPT at the very least, and potentially some other AI tools. And once you sort of figure that out, then you sort of realize, wow, like this is really going to change the world. But the interesting thing about AI is that it's inherently centralizing. And there's a few reasons for that, but one of the reasons is around computing power and how, AI requires a lot of GPU chips, computing chips, and for really powerful models to work and be trained, these chips have to be closely located together, which requires, a lot of money to be able to buy the chips and store them in a certain place and pay for the electricity and all this sort of stuff. So the AI is sort of inherently centralizing in that, only a few large companies can really compete in this playing field. So it's actually really interesting that crypto and AI have sort of found this intersection. And I guess like for the audience to sort of conceptualize what this intersection might look like, I kind of think about it in two different ways. There's AI improving crypto on like the crypto experience. So, there's, incorporating AI into wallets, into dApps, just making the user experience cleaner. Because we know with crypto, the user experience is a bit, it's difficult for sure. And although it is improving over time, it's definitely, probably not at the stage that I can onboard my grandma to Phantom Wallet and then start, trading perps or something like that on a decentralized exchange, for example. Whereas, potentially AI could help with that. I don't know. So that's sort of like one bucket that like sort of frame crypto AI. And then there's also another bucket where crypto is improving AI, and sort of that's when this decentralization aspect comes into it. So sort of being the counterbalance to these 5 large companies controlling the AI. And this can sort of, take many forms, I guess. We've got like coordination, the coordination of the blockchain. We've got crypto economic incentives, actually incentivizing the development of different components of the AI stack. So those are the sort of like broad buckets that I actually place this sort of sector into.
And when you zoom out, somebody said this to me and it really hit home as to why these two industries need to belong together. AI, and we've all done this with ChatGPT, right? AI gives us the ability to create an incredible amount of information and content. And blockchain gives us the ability to verify specific pieces of information and content, where they came from and whether or not they are trustworthy or not. And that specifically, I think, is such a big opportunity as well as we move into a world where it's going to be very hard to trust information and trust knowledge. And the ability to don't trust, verify information via blockchain technology in a trustless or a trust minimized, decentralized way is going to be critical for us to be able to just kind of pass and process the amount of information that we get. And that could be across socials, it could be across news media, it could be across almost, company communications, it could be anything. But I think that was a really important point and something that really helped me understand how these two industries were really almost destined to grow together and boom at the same time. Give us a bit of a walk through the current state of the crypto AI landscape. Who are the major players and what kind of tech is currently being worked on?
Yeah. So let's sort of break it up into like layers of the tech stack. So if we think about the bottom of the stack, we've kind of got like computing networks, so the likes of like Akash and Render that are incentivizing people to contribute GPUs to the network that can then be used for, decentralized training, decentralized inference for AI and other use cases as well, of course. And then we've got sort of like a slight level above that's like data. So we've got projects like Varna that are sort of incentivizing user-owned data. And then we've sort of got this area in the middle. It's like middleware, I guess, and that can range from projects that are creating open source models, coordination networks like BitTensor, and decentralized inference, privacy, like Nillion, what Nillion's working on. This is sort of like the middle of the stack. And then at the top, we've actually got sort of the application layer, and that's like apps like Venice.ai, and some of these like, DeFi, AI trading tools, that sort of thing. So that's sort of the main way that I sort of break up the stack and sort of conceptualize where each project is sort of sitting. And over the past sort of quarter, I guess, we've seen agents really take off as, I guess, the hot narrative, and sort of kicked off with Truth Terminal and Gaussius Maximus. And we sort of saw the spawn of all these different agents. But I sort of view this as the first iteration of AI agents in crypto, because really they are just like, from what we've seen so far, they're mostly just entertainment Twitter accounts. They're not really very, what's the word, like valuable, or they're not really doing anything beyond just like shit posting and the odd sort of like transaction on chain. I feel like this is the first iteration. We sort of saw the narrative really spike, and then over the past month or so, we've really come back down again. And it seems like capital is flowing to the projects that are working hard to actually start providing more value beyond just shit posting on Twitter. So yeah, that's what I've been sort of keeping up with over the past quarter. And then looking ahead, there's quite a few different components of this stack that I think are very interesting.
Yeah, man, the Goatsy story was crazy, and that seemed to kick off a whole new narrative, whole new meta. And it is so entertaining watching this kind of stuff play out. What we saw some pretty significant price performance. I think late last year, early this year, AI was the sector, right? Outside of Bitcoin and its run up before and after the ETFs, AI coins seem to be some of the best performing tokens on the market. Can you give us a bit of a walk back through what has happened from a market's perspective in the AI sector so far and where we're at right now, and how Deepseek seems to have, thrown a cat amongst the pigeons there a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I think just broadly, like AI has definitely dominated the mind share on crypto Twitter, at least over the past, year, 18 months. Initially, at the start of 2024, we did sort of see the dino coins move, for lack of a better term. Like these projects have been building for years. And some of them are loosely related to AI, like compute networks. And then there's others that are, more directly focused on AI. And they did pretty well at the start of 2024. And then over the sort of Northern Hemisphere summer, we got that lull period where it's just like meme coin madness, and AI projects really struggled then, actually. But coming out of that, we saw BitTensor have a really strong run coming into the Aussie spring. And then with the launch of Truth Terminal and Gotius Maximus, that really kicked off the agent meta. And we saw, thousands of these agent coins launch on top of launch pads like Virtuals, AI16Z, now Eliza OS. And initially it was just mayhem. Like, I'm sure you remember, it was sort of hard to keep up with everything. You post on Twitter and there's like 3 AI bots just like commenting, and then they have tokens attached, and it's sort of hard to tell, like, why should this token be valued at this price, whereas this one is valued at this price. It just didn't really make much sense beyond the mind share that agent was actually able to garner. And then from there, we sort of saw the initial successful agents that were able to garner a bit of attention slowly realize, or maybe quickly realize, that the Twitter account that just was, had a coin that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars in market cap probably wasn't actually fairly valued. So they sort of rushed to create their own agent launch frameworks. And we've sort of seen this explosion of agent launch frameworks associated with these agents in the beginning. And at that point, we sort of, from memory, we sort of saw capital flow out of these individual agent coins into these launchpad tokens. And then it kind of got to the point where there's so many launchpads, you couldn't actually figure out, why is this launchpad different to this one? So that was sort of start of January when we really saw that parabolic rise in the likes of Virtuals and AI16Z. And since then, the agent sort of meta has really died off. I think market participants have gotten a little bit sick of just constantly trying to keep up to date with everything. And I think people are really looking for the next fundamental play. I think, we've had the past year of meme coins and agents now. And I think the typical degen is pretty exhausted, just trying to keep up with everything. And I'm sort of now seeing the sentiment change to, where's the fundamental value? Where's the projects that actually need a token and actually have PMF? And let's invest in those.
How are you passing through the projects that are working on genuinely innovative tech versus the projects that are just adding ChatGPT style wrapper tech to their existing stack? And we see that from basically every SaaS company right now. You have to have AI as a part of your offering. How do you find the companies that are doing actual, real, interesting leap forward innovation?
It's really difficult. It's actually really, really difficult. I mean, beyond, when you think about the Twitter sort of bot agents that we've experienced over the past quarter, initially Truth Terminal was novel, and the posting that it did was, you know, unique, and obviously Goat ran to over $1 billion just off the back of that. And now Goat has, I think it's almost under $100 million now in market cap, or somewhere near there. And that just sort of highlights to me like how like these things can just rise parabolically when it's unique and new, and then just die off. So I think actually what is good changes from week to week, which is, you know, given this technology is so new, it's actually really difficult to then determine what's fundamentally valuable. And now we've got all these sort of open source agent launch frameworks popping up. It's actually like similarly really difficult to tell what's the moat here, because, you know, maybe one's using TypeScript and one's using Python, but, you know, there's always going to be an audience for both of them. So trying to figure out like, okay, how does this launch pad actually differ from this one, beyond just the language that it uses to launch the agents is really difficult. So I feel like the agent space is quite tricky if you're non-technical, whereas looking elsewhere in the AI, the crypto AI stack might actually be easier to sort of figure out where there is fundamental value. So like, you know, there's compute. We've got Akash Network, you know, record daily expenditure with their network, just like almost monthly. I'm just seeing that number rise and rise and rise, just showing that they have incredible PMF. And I don't see the demand for compute going down anytime soon. And then we've got, you know, the likes of newer projects like Grass and Varna, creating these user-owned data sets, and data is really important for AI as well. So that's another area that I'm looking into. And then we've got these coordination networks like BitTensor, which today had the dynamic tau upgrade, and which went smoothly according to my sources. So which is great to hear. And then we've got other projects like Venice.ai, which is you know, a privacy first version of you know, a chat interface essentially, and that runs the latest open source models. So I think there's like a lot of you know, good projects, but you just have to dig through the noise. And if you're not, you know, technically inclined, I think trying to figure out these agent launch pads and like which agent's more valuable than another is going to be really difficult, because even the best of the best are struggling.
Yeah. And what's the moat and how large is the moat is such a key question. Can you give us a really quick walk through Deepseek and what happened there last week? That sent the US stock market down a little. It sent crypto tumbling, sent Nvidia down 17%. What happened?
Yeah. I mean, I'm no economics expert, but basically, Deepseek, they released this model R1, an open source model that anyone could have access to, and they released a very detailed paper that went alongside it, sort of describing how they trained this model and these sort of innovations that they made. And Deepseek's out of China, so in the paper there was actually sort of details about, you know, how they made all these innovations that essentially made the model a lot cheaper to train. There's some debate about, you know, how many multiples cheaper it was to train, and, you know, how many computer chips they actually used and how many they had access to. But the actual multiple doesn't really matter as much as the direction, right? So they managed to train a leading model on par with ChatGPT or OpenAI's O1 model in many benchmarks. So really like cutting edge stuff, and then gave it to everyone for free. Anyone can access it, anyone can use it, anyone can run it, and just really spooked the market. You know, we've got Nvidia worth, I think over $2 or $3 trillion, and the sort of big tech companies making up a huge component of the S&P 500, and the market really got spooked based off the fact that all these big tech companies have been raising huge amounts of capital to put towards compute. compute or data compute for their AI models. So Deepseek coming out and having this, cutting edge model that they'd trained for a fraction of the cost that the US-based AI companies had been achieving, just really spooked the market. NVIDIA sort of fell really sharply off the back of that, as people sort of immediately landed on the assumption that, okay, we don't actually need to spend all this money on computer chips. So that's sort of the situation. I think my sort of contrarian view, and I think a lot of the markets landed on this now after a sort of couple of weeks of digestion, is that because we now have more models coming out that are cutting edge, that doesn't mean that we're going to use AI less, right? So DeepSeek actually still requires GPUs, when you're inferencing or asking a question and it's giving you a response, that's using computing power. So if more people have access to AI, cutting edge AI, then of course we're still going to have an increased demand for GPU chips. So I think the market sort of rebounded on that once they've realized and gotten over the initial scare, but that's sort of the situation.
Great take. Let's finish quickly with what you're looking for in the AI crypto sector this year.
Yeah, I've sort of, I guess I mentioned briefly before, but I think sort of tying this in with DeepSeek, we've got now open source models that anyone can access in the world, download it, run it locally. And like DeepSeek, and we've got Llama obviously as well from Meta. And people are, downloading these models and then running them on decentralized compute networks like Akash, and for their own projects. And I really see, networks like Akash, like these sort of deep in projects, really, continuing to grow over the next year. Like I said before, Akash and several other compute networks have been seeing just increasing fees every day. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that the demand for compute is just not going to slow down anytime soon, especially as more and more people use these cutting edge AI models. So that's one area. Another area I'm pretty interested in is data. Obviously, data is sort of the bedrock for AI. And if you have a really great data set, that actually then drastically improves your AI model. Like without the data, then you don't really have a model. So that's another one. I'm also interested in coordination networks. So using crypto economic incentives and the blockchain to actually coordinate participants to create ever improving AI machine learning algorithms and products. So one example is BitTensor, which I mentioned before. We've had this dynamic tau upgrade go through today. This was like years in the making, and a lot of participants were sort of like, how's this going to go? It's pretty novel. But from all reports that I've heard this morning, it's been a great success. So I'm sort of interested to see how that plays out over time, and what sort of projects and products actually come out of it. Even in the past few weeks, we've seen Subnet 64, which is Shoots.ai, taking the majority of the DeepSeek inference through Open Rounder, the free version, which is just incredible for PMF and that sort of thing. So that's sort of where I'm looking.
Plenty to watch. It's definitely an exciting time. Thanks so much for joining us, Paddy. It's great to hear your takes on the industry, your takes on where we're heading. And we'll get you back on the show again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our Binance Australia local social media channels. Signing out. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week, Binanceans. Bye. Please note that this discussion includes insights from non-affiliated third parties and key opinion leaders. Binance provides this platform for informational and educational purposes only and is not responsible for any content or insights provided. This information should not be considered as financial, tax, or investment advice from Binance.